Hey guys, how's it going? I'm Sydney from PhoneDog.com, and I'm back with the LG DoublePlay from T-Mobile. This is an Android smartphone, but it has kind of an interesting form factor. It has a slide-out keyboard, which you'll notice in the middle of this keyboard is this new secondary display that can be used to really improve multitasking, even on Android, which is already a great multitasking operating system. So the question to answer is, is that new secondary display practical? How does it work in real-world usage? That's what we're going to answer in this full review of the DoublePlay. Before we get into the review, I have to say, especially to our friends at Best Buy Mobile, we thank them all the time because they send us phones we can add to our One Paw Bandit game, and that's a game where you can win free phones. One of the great things about Best Buy Mobile is they sell phones from every major US carrier, including some prepaid carriers. So if your contract is up or you're thinking about switching, instead of going to several different retail stores, you can just go to Best Buy Mobile and compare all of the phones in one store. So thank you, Best Buy Mobile, for being so awesome. Thank you guys for watching this video. It's a review of the LG DoublePlay from T-Mobile. I'm Sydney from PhoneDog.com. Let's go check it out. Alright, so this is the LG DoublePlay from T-Mobile, one of their new Android smartphones with a pretty interesting form factor. For the most part it looks like a normal smartphone, but whenever you slide it out, you can see kind of in the middle of the physical keyboard is this new secondary display. So, it's pretty interesting. Whenever I first saw the phone and heard about it and, then got it, I was a little skeptical as to, is it really practical in real-world use? Does it function the way that it's supposed to? Or is it kind of just one of those, gimmicky ideas that manufacturers get? And honestly, it actually is extremely useful, and I was really blown away with just how awesome it is to actually use this secondary display. And the bottom line is that yes, it is very practical. Now, there are a few shortcomings with this idea, and then a few shortcomings with the device itself that make it a little difficult to actually recommend the device. But the idea is pretty awesome. It's a shame that the phone doesn't perform better, because then overall performance plus this new idea, it would actually be a pretty awesome phone. But I'll talk a little bit about the shortcomings, but I'll just tell you about this display and what you can do. You can see it already has some shortcuts, and so this isn't a fully functional secondary display where you can do anything you can do on the main display. It is a little bit limited. You can see I have shortcuts here for messaging, group text, music, photo, browser, social plus, rich notes, and email. Now there is, I believe, one more option. If I were to delete that and then go to add, you can see calendar is the one that I don't have. So those are all of your options plus calendar. I'm going to go ahead and select email again. So again, you're a little bit limited in what exactly you can do, but still it's very useful. So let me give you a few usage scenarios and how this actually comes in very handy. Let's say I'm in the web browser. And for one thing, the display really helps out with multitasking, but even without multitasking, it helps you just in normal navigation of certain apps. So in the web browser, you can see down here, when I opened the browser, it automatically opened a window that will show me the bookmarks that I have. Or I can see if there's any secondary windows open. I can add a new window and say I want the secondary window to go to Google. I go back to my windows and I can switch between them. So, and just in terms of that type of functionality, it's very useful. But not only that, say I'm web browsing, I'm doing whatever, and then I get a text message. If I get a text message, a little, 1 or 2, the number will pop up right by the messaging. It'll do the same with emails. But say I get a text message, I can open it up, view the text message, send a reply, send it, and then I didn't have to close the web browser at all. Say, I'm reading the text message and maybe this conversation is a little more in depth than I thought it would be. I can just select this arrow to move it up to this main display. So, functionality, it's very easy, but also very useful. Again, say I'm watching a video on ESPN, for example. I'll let the video load. Okay, so say I'm watching a video and again I get a text message. I can do the same thing. I can still send the message while the video is playing. Or say I got an email. I can open my email and whoops, open my email, view any of the messages that I have, and then respond to the email right here while the video is still playing. So multitasking is very easy with this display. You can see, besides messaging and email, you can also go to Social Plus if you have your Twitter account linked. Whatever you're doing on the main display, you can, send a tweet with Social Plus. With Rich Note, you can be, maybe looking at your calendar or typing out a text message and then realize, okay, I need to, make a note of a couple of things. Just open up Rich Note and add a note. Very easy to use. It makes multitasking just extremely, easy, but also it's just a novel idea that actually works and that really is practical. Now, a couple of the downsides I'll tell you just about this system is, one, as you can see, your options are kind of limited. So, for example, it has Social Plus, but say, that's an app, from T-Mobile, from LG. Say I don't like that app and I like using Seismic for Twitter, or, some other Twitter app or Facebook app. As you can see, there's no other option to add a different app to this. So, if I use Seismic, which is, what I use, I can't move that down here and use that on this secondary display. Or music, if I happen to have a music player that I've downloaded, I can't use that. Also the Gmail app, even though I have LG's custom email app, I can't have the Gmail app down here. So, there's a few limitations that I wish they would improve on. Or maybe just add a couple of options instead of just, these 8 or 9 options. Just a few limitations I wish they would improve on, and I hope they will. Honestly, it deserves that because, like I said, it is such an awesome idea that actually really works very well. So having that secondary display, very practical, very useful. I instantly fell in love with it as soon as I realized how much I could do with it and how easy it was to use. And those are just a couple of the things that you can do with it. So secondary display, very awesome. The idea is great. Now, what I said earlier, previously, is that the idea is great, and I wish the phone overall was a better phone, because then it would make this a killer device. But instead, the display has some limitations, and then the phone itself is kind of more of a mid-range, maybe even low-end device. I would call it mid-range device, but depending on how you view smartphone technology these days. The display is pretty small, a 3.5-inch display. It has a resolution of 320 by 480, which is a pretty low resolution. That's nothing that's going to hinder you in terms of using the device, and it won't bother everybody. Not everybody wants or needs this Super AMOLED Plus display. But the point is that it is a mid-range device, and so performance is kind of lacking. So, then on top of that, you have the fact that it is extremely chunky and heavy. I mean, it feels like a half-ton brick in my hand. So, a little disappointing. I wish the device was better overall, because that would really make this, even more appealing. But instead, you have this awesome idea with a phone that isn't really that impressive overall. Like I said, 3.5-inch display. In terms of typing, you won't have to worry about cramming your thumbs onto this tiny display, because you do have this physical keyboard. And again, going back to, okay, this idea is great, but it means that the keyboard gets chopped in half, and then it kind of, it's a little awkward. Honestly, though, it wasn't as difficult to get used to as I thought it would be. Whenever I first saw the keyboard, I was like, wow, this is going to be tough. But actually using it, testing it out, I got used to it pretty quickly, and it's actually, pretty easy to type on. I'll open up messaging here, and we'll go to new message, and I'll just type out the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. So, you can see it's pretty easy to type on. It's a pretty well-designed keyboard considering, what they had to work with. It's nice that you have a space bar on each side. I originally thought the space bar was only on this side, and I was like, it's going to be a little difficult, but there's actually a space bar on each side. And then, once you realize that, maybe with a normal keyboard, I would sometimes like reach my thumb over to get to the T, or the G. Once you realize that you can't do that, this thumb can only get to these letters and this thumb can only get to these letters, once you, get used to the idea, it's actually a pretty nice keyboard. You can see the keys, if I can get it at an angle here. They have that bubble kind of pillow raised design to them, and then they're not very They're not very mushy. They have, a nice firm tactile feedback. They are a little slippery. They're just basic plastic keys, so there's not a lot of grip to them, but then at the same time they're not so slippery that my fingers are sliding all over the keyboard. That's one thing that is kind of difficult to get used to, because you can't get any traction, so it's hard to press a key. But overall it's a great keyboard, and it wasn't as difficult to get used to as I thought it would be, so I was impressed by that. So that's the keyboard, and then you do have the Android virtual keyboard. This is the gingerbread keyboard, and then I believe that's, you also get swipe. So if you want to use swipe, you also have that. Now I mentioned gingerbread. This phone does ship with Android 2.3, which is nice, considering that it is a mid-range device, or whatever you want to call it. It's definitely not a high-end device, and so usually devices in this category, some of them ship with Android 2.3, but some of them don't. They'll ship with, a previous version of Android. So it's definitely nice that you're getting the latest version of Android, at least the latest version that's been released so far. On top of Android, you can see that LG has added some customizations here. So there is a custom dock at the bottom that you can use shortcuts for calls, context messaging, and then the app drawer. The app drawer is divided into categories. You can pinch in to collapse the categories, pinch out to expand them. You can also add categories. Right now all we have is downloads and applications, but you can manage a category, and so you can add different categories, or manage an app, so you can move it around, move an app from one category to the other. Personally, I don't really like the categories idea. I would rather just have it, one long list. But if that's something that you enjoy, that is a feature with LG's custom UI. It's not a feature that you get with other UIs that manufacturers add on top of Android.